border numbers were just 101,000, the lowest between ports of entry in 4 years. How'd they do it? Well, there's an app for that and a parole program. Over the past 2 years, more than 1.4 million have been allowed to enter the country lawfully under the CBP One app and the CHNV parole program. Now, the White House is taking that victory lap, quote, saying border crossings have dropped by more than 55% to the lowest levels in over 4 years, and counters between the ports of entry are lower than they were during the last several months of the previous administration. The Biden-Harris administration has taken effective action, and Republican officials continue to do nothing.
The FBI is probing the leak of U.S. intelligence on Israel's plans related to Iran. Rebecca Heinrichs, senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, says the Biden administration has a systemic leaking problem.
Anytime U.S. officials have conversations with the Israelis, then we find it reported in the American media without, naming the source in the Biden-Harris administration. So the biggest problem for me and the biggest fallout from this is that it further damages the United States' reputation as a reliable ally and partner, especially with allies like Israel, who are in a time of need, about to carry out a significant counterstrike against the Iran regime. And so there should be no leaks. And the American people have to have confidence in their administration that this is going to be investigated thoroughly and these people brought to justice if it was an intentional leak.
Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders says the Republican Party supports education across the board and strongly believes that parents know best when it comes to their own children.
The Republican Party hasn't just become a party for school choice, but for education across the board. We know that the best way to create opportunity and give a kid a pathway to success is through a great education. One of the biggest differences is that we know that parents, not governments, make better decisions about their kids' education.
A shocking report from the United Nations states over 700 female athletes have lost close to 900 medals to male athletes pretending to be women. Riley Gaines is host of the Gaines for Girls podcast on Outkick.com.
Well, I think this is huge, as you said, especially coming from the UN, especially off of the coattails of the Olympic Games, where we saw two athletes who had previously been banned from world championships for failing sex eligibility requirements of having two X chromosomes in a boxing ring, winning gold medals in fights against women. So this is huge.
You've heard of the term religious nuns, N-O-N-E-S, to describe those who claim no faith. The American Bible Society has a couple of new categories that their latest release defines. Steve Jordahl looks at casuals and nominals.
You can draw a straight line from unbelievers to committed Christians and find a person's well-being and general outlook on life improves as he or she moves from the first to the second, according to John Blake of the American Bible Society. But he says there are a couple of stops along the way that are worth looking at.
Nominals. Nominals self-identify as being Christians, but they don't say their faith is very important to them. Then there are the casuals. These are people who they say their faith is very important to them, but they actually don't attend church once a month or more frequently.
Nominals are the largest percentage of Americans at 35%, slightly larger than nuns. Casuals make up 12% of the population, and 20% of Americans say they're practicing Christians. And again, you can chart each group's happiness, physical and mental health, and more along the line between non-Christian and practicing Christian.
Nominals are not doing as well as, say, even casual Christians or practicing Christians are. The only ones doing worse than they are non-Christians. Their stress levels are higher than others. Their hope levels are lower than others, and their human flourishing levels are also lower than those who are practicing a biblical faith in a Christian community.
Blake says both new categories present mission fields to the church.
Begin to engage people on a spiritual level. More of them are open to that kind of engagement than we would like to believe.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
More news online at afn.net and the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Let's think about what God has done. I would wager that his top news story is still that the free salvation through the blood of Jesus Christ is available to all. I wager that will be the top news story until that salvation is no longer available. You will have made your decision for eternity. He doesn't ask us to do anything he won't, and then he does above what we can possibly do.
Hear Todd Herman on A Disciple's View, weekdays 12 p.m. Central on AFR.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR on this Wednesday, October the 23rd, 2024. We hope you are having a good morning. I'm Tim Wildman again with Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
Good morning.
And Fred Jackson.
Howdy there.
Good morning.
Good to be here.
And we thank everybody for listening to AFR. We got so much to talk about today. I don't know if we'll get to it all, but as everyone knows, 2 weeks from yesterday is election day, and we've got presidential elections, of course, taking most of the news headlines. Right?
It is. We're taking the temperature, and the temperature is fluctuating.
Well, and also too, in a lot of the states, there's early voting taking place right now,
Which is a big story.
Yep, that's a big story.
Yeah. And I've said many times on here, you need to vote early.
And
often.
Thank you. Thank you.
Got to make up for the Democrats.
That's
right. I apologize.
Yeah.
I should not have said that.
That was a lot of
Wesley didn't
assumptions
set
there.
me up for that joke.
No, I didn't.
He didn't?
No,
but I didn't stop you either.
No. Listen, we all hope and pray it's an honest election, and there's integrity to it, and
hopes that the things that we learned from 2020, some of those were fixed. Hopefully, for 20.
I think they were. I know people disagree with this. I've talked to people who go, "Hey, there's no hope for Trump because their Democrats are cheating."
Yeah.
And let's wait and see, okay, how everything goes.
Also, too, we've talked about this before, and then
you didn't say that. Wesley didn't say that. I had a friend
that.
outside the ministry who said that.
Even though are you implying that sounds like something I would say?
Well,
you started talking right after he said that.
Yes, like you were confessing.
You were explaining why maybe he had.
This is why it takes all of us.
Well, and Wesley, you are, and this is not a character flaw necessarily. You are given to conspiracies from time to time. That
there's people way worse than me.
But
let's not talk about my son now.
Who's a friends of mine, right?
No, Tony hosted the show yesterday.
Yeah, you co-hosted.
How'd that go?
He did good.
He did well. He did well.
Yeah.
And,
all right.
But I did. It feels funny because I was saying, I said, well, Tim's out, Wesley's out, Ray Pritchard's out, Fred's out. And we are really scraping the bottom of the barrel today, folks.
Well, that's the way to introduce your son.
Yeah.
Build his self-esteem.
I'm just setting him up to be ready for criticism.
There you go.
All right, Fred, what's the first story you got for us?
Well, we're going to deal with some media stories today about the election campaign. There's one that a lot of people are talking about this morning. The Atlantic publication online, mainly, I guess it would be, very liberal. Would lean heavily Democrat. What people are talking about is a story written by Jeffrey Goldberg, who is editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. He did a story on former President Trump's interaction with the family of 20-year-old Vanessa Guillen. She was the daughter of Mexican immigrants who was murdered in April 2020 by a fellow soldier at Fort Hood. You may remember that story, very tragic. Well, in Goldberg's story yesterday, he says that Trump consoled Gillen's family at the White House. There's actually a picture of them in the Oval Office, and offered to provide financial assistance to cover the funeral costs. But according to Goldberg's story, he says Trump became enraged when he got the bill for the funeral, refusing to pay it, saying it doesn't cost $60,000 to bury, and then he used an expletive and then said Mexican. Now that is Goldberg's story. The lawyer for the Guillen family and family members are 100% denying the truth of that story that Goldberg has published out there. The lawyer for the family, Natalie...
Excuse me just a minute, Fred. Sorry for interrupting. It's rare. But I got to ask you, and maybe I missed it right there. Who heard this? Who supposedly heard this?
This is a story published in The Atlantic.
Yeah, but he's asking who allegedly
who's the source?
Heard Trump say that doesn't cost $60,000 to bury him?
I am led to believe that the source is anonymous at this point. However, I want you to listen to what the lawyer for the family is saying, Natalie Guawam. She is quoted in a story this morning on Fox News. She is saying, after having dealt with hundreds of reporters in my legal career, this is unfortunately the first time I have to go on record and call out Jeffrey Goldberg, The Atlantic. Not only did he misrepresent, all right, so she was interviewed for this.
Okay.
All right. Misrepresent our conversation, but he outright, and I'm quoting her here, lied in his sensational story. And she's writing this on X. More importantly, he used and exploited my clients and Vanessa Guillen's murder for cheap political gain. I would like to also point out that the timing of this story is quite suspicious since this murder took place 4 years ago. Also quoted in this Fox story is Guillen's sister, Myra Guillen, and if I'm mispronouncing that name, forgive me. She said, wow, I don't appreciate how you are exploiting my sister's death for politics, hurtful and disrespectful to the important changes she made for service members. President Donald Trump did nothing but show respect to my family and Vanessa. In fact, I voted for President Trump today. My sister's death was never to be politicized. Unbelievable, she wrote in a separate post. So the question is, why would The Atlantic, why would Goldberg write such a thing, knowing that all of these people are totally denying what he is saying? Why would he feel comfortable doing that? Also in this Fox story, the chief of staff at the time for Trump, Mark Meadows, he says, I was in the discussions featured in The Atlantic's latest hit piece against President Trump. Let me say this. Any suggestion that President Trump disparaged Ms. Guillen or refused to pay for her funeral expenses is absolutely false. He was nothing but kind, gracious, and wanted to make sure that the military and the U.S. government did right by Vanessa Guillen and her family. So a couple of questions. Like the lawyer said, why would they write this story now, 4 years after the incident? And also, did Goldberg not talk to these family members? It seems to be the case. He may have talked to the lawyer, but the family members are totally denying this. So why would he do it?
And also the Atlantic piece apparently made charges about the conversation that President Trump had with the family on the phone as well. And that's why the people in the family of the person who was killed are saying, no, that's not the way the conversation went at all. Yeah. So it's not just that the family is saying, I don't believe President Trump would ever say that in private. Now, they would say that, but they wouldn't know what the president might have said to someone else. Part of what this article was talking about is trying to characterize what Trump said to the family on the phone, and the family is saying, no, he never said anything like that.
No.
I'll tell you, I'll answer your question for you, Fred. You want me to answer it for you?
Go for it.
The Atlantic is a very liberal news magazine. The idea of Trump winning presidency is repulsive to them. So they are trying to make Trump look bad in a news story they hope will go viral. And
less than 2 weeks or 2 weeks before the election.
He's hoping this becomes the, quote, October surprise.
Right.
I'm guessing. Listen, what you described, Fred, is poor journalism, to say the least. If, in fact, this guy is misrepresenting, the families are saying Trump didn't behave or act or talk like you're saying he did when he met with us, right?
Right.
When he talked with us on the phone, he was only respectful. So what is this guy, what's his name?
Goldberg.
What is he going
Jeffrey
on?
Goldberg.
That's my question to you earlier. What is he going? Who is his source to say any differently than what the families are saying here?
I guess Fred, he has an anonymous source.
That's
right?
not good enough.
That's not
for something like this. You
no.
can't. And you're the editor of the magazine.
But having talked to the lawyer for the family, who is denying the story, that even more. If you're talking to the lawyer and the lawyer is saying what all of this is just false, you have family members saying it's totally false. In fact, one family member said, I went out and voted for Donald Trump today.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, Trump, he can do damage on his own to himself. We all know that with his mouth.
Right.
But to say stuff that he supposedly he said, and you don't, as serious and as critical and as vulgar as this kind of accusation is, and to not have a tape or a couple of sources is just, to me, completely and totally irresponsible. And it's kind of like what they did back 4 years ago when they didn't run the Hunter Biden laptop story. The mainstream media, remember that, they covered because they didn't want to hurt Biden's chances to win. This is the same type thing. Yeah. I think this is just their open bias. What do you think?
Well,
Ed?
and then there were on the record denials for Mark Meadows and Kash Patel, who's the I'm looking here now. It says former chief of staff of then acting defense secretary Christopher Miller. So those were on the record denials that Trump ever said any such thing. So it's one anonymous source against all these other people who would know.
Including the family members.
Including the family members.
I'm going to go with the family members.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, has there been an opportunity at this point? Is the timeline going so far that it allows the Atlantic to respond to the family members? You know what I mean?
Well, this is new. This is all new. So whether they write something in response to the firestorm, well, I guess that remains to be seen.
But I guess I'd just be curious at this point, when you're exposed publicly, how do you respond? Like, oops, I got this wrong, or could at this point, without their response, it appears to be as they just lied.
Well, the thing is, the family members are talking about this.
Yeah.
So this begs the question: as a reporter, did you try to get a hold of the family members?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Did you try to talk to
them? And this guy's editor. He needs to answer those kind of questions. I hope maybe we'll see that today. Next story.
Other media type stories. We know that the mainstream media has been all in for the Democratic Party. I mean, I read Associated Press every day.
4 decades.
4 decades. And this has been proven. Pew Research has done that. 90% of the reporters say they vote Democrat.
Yeah.
So it is a little curious at this point. We're starting to see examples, and I'm going to play you some examples from CNN and NBC, where Vice President Kamala Harris, her running mate Tim Walz, are being challenged in interviews on these liberal networks as to the facts of their story. So I want to play you first. This is an interview CNN has done with Tim Walz, who said more manufacturing jobs have been created under the Biden administration than were ever created under the Trump administration. CNN does a fact check on this, and I want to play what the fact checker had to say about this. Cut number 5.
We want to make sure that you're able to bring manufacturing like Kamala Harris did. We know Donald Trump lost more manufacturing jobs than any president in American history. Yep. That's simply factual.
Well, if you're going to say something is simply factual, it should be factual. This is not. It's not true that the Trump presidency lost more manufacturing jobs than any other presidency. Pre-pandemic, under Trump, there was a gain of about 414,000 manufacturing jobs. Again, he ended a negative 178,000, but that was largely because we had a pandemic-related crash.
So kudos to CNN. They just fact-checked what Tim Walz was saying was the fact. And we've heard this before.
Oh, listen, Kamala Harris has mentioned this during the debate. She mentioned this. I've heard her say this on the campaign trail. They always talk about Trump's economic record after or during the pandemic.
Yep.
That's what they as if the other 3.5 years before that didn't even exist.
It's insulting to the general public because we all know, both sides, that whoever was in office when the pandemic took place, all things went down.
Right.
I mean, no matter where it was, we could all debate. Well, if the Republicans are there, we think the numbers would have been better. Or if the Democrats in there, the numbers would have been lower. Either way, even if the Democrats were in there and the economy wasn't as good as it was under Trump, or vice versa, either case, whoever was in the White House when the pandemic hit, everybody had bad numbers after that.
Right. And the other
Or
side
would
of
have.
it is, and this is goes to your point about the lying that's going on, is that Harris and Biden-Harris are claiming that they were like magicians in bringing all these jobs back.
They created
these jobs, and everybody knows those are just people going back to work after the shutdown.
And the funds ran out from the government.
Anyone, politician or pundit or whatever, that talks about economic numbers and they happen during COVID, and they don't mention that as a major factor in those economic numbers, be they good or bad.
That's right.
It is speaking dishonestly.
Yes.
Because a lot of the jobs that Biden and Harris say they, quote, created were bounce back jobs from COVID shutdowns. And we all know that. So when they say, look at the jobs we created, and you don't say, but most of these were bounce back jobs, and we acknowledge that. If they don't say that, then they're intentionally trying to mislead people.
CNN fact checker that was there, his name was Daniel Dale.
Daniel Dale. Well, good for Daniel Dale.
Yeah.
Daniel Dale.
Daniel Dale fact checking.
We got a petition going out this afternoon to support Daniel Dale.
Or hope he finds a new job.
Well, I think it is highly unusual for the liberal media, and this gentleman may not be liberal. I don't know how this fellow here.
He says CNN fact checker. So.
Fact checker. So what I'm saying is he is. It's rare that you see them fact check a Democrat on a national platform like that.
All right.
We have another example, don't we?
Yes, another example. NBC. Not known to be, nice to Trump at all. NBC in an interview, and I believe the interview was done by Haley Jackson. No connection. Haley Jackson. NBC's Haley Jackson.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
No connection to
connection
to the Fred Jackson family.
Hi, Mom.
Right.
No. She had an interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. She really pressed Kamala Harris on why didn't you say something about President Biden's mental decline.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah, if you see something, say something. Have a listen to this portion of that interview.
All right, hold on, Fred.
Yeah.
People, stop what you're doing right now. Okay. You're about to hear a classic. This is going to go to the top of the charts in the Kamala Harris book
Legacy.
She has a top 10 greatest hits. And
I think in the top 10,
kind of like Taylor Swift,
Yes.
what I'm saying, a top 10 greatest hits. And I think for Kamala Harris, the vice president, this one is going to shoot to the. It's headed for gold.
Yes.
Right.
It's a
gold record.
Right.
Okay. We present to you, ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States.
Defended him in the days before and in the days after as you were campaigning for another 4 years for President Biden. Can you say that you were honest with the American people about what you saw in those moments with President Biden as you were with him again and again, repeatedly in that time?
Of course. Joe Biden is an extremely accomplished, experienced, and capable in every way that anyone would want if they're president.
And you never saw anything like what happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him?
It was a bad debate. People have bad debates. He is absolutely.
But that's the reason why you're here, and he's not running for the top of the ticket.
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
What do you think?
I am running for president of the United States. Joe Biden is not.
I just think that was pure. That was Kamala Harris.
Made my day.
I was very satisfied with that.
Yes.
Very satisfied.
And listen, again, tip of the hat to Haley Jackson.
Yeah. NBC.
NBC. She's an NBC reporter and a network anchor.
Yes.
For NBC. She had hard questions. And look, I don't know how Kamala Harris has not had an answer for that. I mean, how do you not prepare for that question? I guess because nobody's been asking it.
Sometimes, this is my opinion, not yours, but sometimes, to me, people may disagree with it, the best answer is just to shoot straight. Just say what we all know and try to move on. What Kamala Harris should say to the question about did you not see Biden in decline before the debate is I would say yes, I did. I was worried about it, as were others. But what are we supposed to do? We're not. He's the top dog, so we're supposed to go out and have press conferences against our boss. That's anyway. So we're not supposed to do that. We were just hoping that he would make it through, and he would not have his bad moments. But obviously, he was going downhill. What's wrong with saying that?
Well, a number of things. I think a number of things. First of all, my next question again, we don't know what.
You mean if she said what I just said?
That, I would say that's what the 25th Amendment is for. You and others knew that the president.
I'm going to play the part of her. Well, I would say if I were her.
So you knew the president of the United States was in cognitive decline?
I'm sorry. I had to get a calculator.
Well, that is playing. That is playing a part.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be serious. Go ahead.
That he was in cognitive decline. He's in charge of the nuclear weapons of the most powerful military.
What do you want me to do about it?
Invoke the 25th Amendment
and remove against my boss.
Yes.
Who does that?
Well, that would have been for the good of the country, Madam Vice President.
No,
you care more about your
You're forgetting
election.
this, guys. None of this matters because what happened was if she answered in your way,
what I said,
what you said in any form, then now she's admitting that she's a liar. Because you got to remember,
that's true as well.
Because all the way for months leading up to this, she was asked this, and she said all is well. So at this point, if she were to change her mind, she'd be a liar.
Her political career would be over.
Yeah.
Either way, if she arranged for the invocation,
well, we all know what I said is what happened.
Yes.
Yes. No.
Yeah. And I believe that if she would have said that. If they all would have early on would have said, "Hey, look, we understand what's going on," it may be true, but at this point, she's proven to be a liar.
I would just say
publicly.
Yeah, he was in cognitive decline, but it wasn't so bad that we noticed that he needed to be removed from office.
She could have. Yeah, she.
That would have been a safe one.
Huh?
That's a safe one. She could have said, "I'm not a doctor." His doctor kept telling us that he was okay.
Yeah.
We had concerns.
That's what
but
I
the
would have
doctor,
said.
But I'm not a doctor, and
she did. Go ahead, Fred.
There's another question here that we haven't asked yet. Why all of a sudden are the media asking these tough questions of fact-checking? The fact-checking of Tim Walz could have been done months ago.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Why are they doing it now? The tough question from NBC's Haley Jackson. Why now?
Yeah, and we've got another one, don't we? What do we have? Do we have the transgender question?
We don't have the transgender one, but same interview.
Yeah.
Here's my theory. The mainstream media is smelling the Democrats are in trouble. And they want to now to be able to say, bad candidates.
It's not our ideas.
It's not our ideas.
Policies.
It's bad candidates.
I think it's that, Fred. I also think some things are so obvious, you have to ask them.
For the point of your credibility.
You have to press them if you want any credibility at all.
Especially what CBS is going through.
Yes.
NBC and CNN don't
60 Minutes?
Yeah, they don't want to get stuck with people going, hey, what's up with you guys?
Hey, listen, there's no question the liberal mainstream media, they're in full panic mode right now. And
we need Kamala to keep doing interviews.
We'll be back.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
There's a sentence in the book of books which reads like this: For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Experience is a great teacher, and all of us have had the experience of being a stranger on occasion. We can remember on those occasions how much we wanted someone to show us a little kindness. Being kind to another makes life enjoyable. It enriches the soul of the person showing kindness and wins the heart of the recipient. So a kind act helps at least two people, possibly and probably more. Greatness of soul isn't measured by genius, fame, or fortune. It's measured by kindness. Stephen Grellet once wrote, "I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." I believe also that being kind to another brings kindness in return. There's a law of life which is stated like this: we reap what we sow. Most of us are aware of what happens when kindness isn't used. Harold Sandall put it this way: any kindness that is never used but hidden alone will slowly harden till it is hard as any stone. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. It's called the Golden Rule. It's a wonderful way of living. Be kind to others because you want them to be kind to you. Kindness is also the best persuasion we have. Now, our speech may be good and interesting, and we need to use interesting and informative words, but one act of kindness often speaks louder than 1,000 words. Frederick Faber once said, "Kindness has converted more sinners than zeal, eloquence, and learning." And that's true. The ministry of kindness is a ministry which may be achieved by all people, rich or poor, learned or illiterate, young or old. Brilliance of mind and capacity for deep thinking have rendered great service to humanity, but by themselves they are impotent to dry a tear or mend a broken heart. Whatever a person has to say, it does not mean much unless it is backed by action. And for many of us who have trouble getting our words to come out right, we found a simple act of kindness gets the job done. The stranger who sojourns with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. We've all been strangers in the land of Egypt. We know how much kindness is wanted and needed and appreciated. Let us, therefore, be as kind to others as we would wish they were to us. Edgar Guest, the poet, he had a way of expressing profound thoughts in simple words, and he wrote this down one time. "When I see a deed of kindness, I'm eager to be kind. When a weakened brother stumbles and a strong man stays behind just to see if he can help him, then the wish grows strong in me to become as big and thoughtful as I know that friend can be. And all travelers can witness that the best of guides today is not the one who tells them, but the one who shows the way."
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Colossians 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues here on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred. And we thank you again for listening. Election Day, 2 weeks from yesterday. And Fred, we will be here
on election night,
on this very place on the dial or on your app, right? On election night?
At 6 o'clock Central is when the program launches. And we're starting at 6 o'clock because that's when on the East Coast, there's a bunch of states that are in the Eastern time zone that will have their first results. And there's 6 or 7 states, I believe it is, at least, that'll have the first results.
By what time?
6 o'clock Central. 6 o'clock Central, because polls on the East Coast,
that's right.
7 o'clock Eastern time zone. So we'll be here. And so it won't be just speculating at that point, folks. We'll be telling you what's going on.
You're not going to want to miss this either. We'll be streaming it, right?
Yes.
Okay, Walker and I are going to arm wrestle. So
excellent.
You're not going to want to miss that. So for those that,
You're going to arm wrestle.
Yeah, Walker, Wildman, my brother, and I will be on, and we like to give each other a hard time.
Can people place bets on that?
Yeah.
On our AFR website?
We have.
This is for entertainment purposes only.
That's right. You get the UFC category, and then we have our own version. That's the Christian version.
Okay.
Folks, if I were a betting man, I would guess that he's kidding.
Yes, that's right.
If you were a betting man.
I was going to suggest if it was true that one wear blue shirt, the other one a red shirt.
That's
right.
All
right.
You know?
And then
we may get creative.
Then we'll say who's going to win the election based on who wins that.
Yeah.
Remember they used to have
like a Groundhog Day.
They used to have an octopus or something. I think until it died. You remember this octopus? It would come out and whichever side of
like
the
Groundhog
tank,
Day with the
whichever side of the tank it would come out on
Groundhog.
would determine I think who's going to win the Super Bowl, but things like that.
Yeah,
I think it's
scientific.
You've lost me.
No, it was an actual octopus, and it would be released inside a tank. And then whatever side,
did you go through a period of taking drugs?
No.
I mean that's okay.
Listen,
everybody has their.
It predicted the winner every time.
No.
Yes.
All
right. You don't
maybe the winner, but the
I'm
winner,
sorry. I should doubt you.
Or the winner.
You and I are similar.
You've known me long enough.
Hold on. I just don't remember anything like that. But hey, you could be right.
Are you saying winter or winner?
Octopus predicting Super Bowl.
Okay, you're saying the winner.
I'm looking at what Ed's talking about. An octopus in a popular. This is AI generated, right?
Paul the octopus. He died in 2010.
Oh wow.
That's the one that predicted the results of soccer matches. Rocky the octopus predicts Super Bowl 46 winner. Went 4 for 4 on the Super Bowls.
My apologies, Ed. I doubted you.
To Tim, Fred, and Wesley, and probably Brent, here's what I'd like to say. Booyah.
Well, that's good Christianity.
I would have received that better.
Booyah?
You would have the original statement. If you would have said that the octopus predicted the weather, like winter. Cold,
okay.
But you said winner,
winner,
and then I'm out. I had to have that to believe you,
right?
So I appreciate you.
Sure, absolutely.
Now, Tim, how are you going to segue into our guest?
We're segueing. We're going to segue. Well, there are octopuses all off the coast of Florida.
Some of them have washed up lately.
Yes. So joining us from the Sunshine State, but not an octopus.
No.
Is Jenna Ellis. Jenna is host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, 7 to 8 o'clock Central Time, right here on American Family Radio. And good morning, Jenna.
Good morning. And I actually have a great octopus quick joke for you, because did you know that lawyers are often called sharks, and the best among us lawyers are called squids or octopi, because those are the only things that kill sharks.
Oh, well,
thank you, JJ.
Except
Jasper.
I think orcas can take them down. Too,
yeah, orcas can take anything.
But anyway, get the point.
Well.
I gave Abraham Hamilton III. I had a book somebody sent me that I looked through and read a couple of years ago, whenever it was, maybe not even that long. Anyway, so I gave it to Abe. Jenna, you'll be glad to know the title of it was "Lawyers and Other Reptiles."
That's great, because you know what you call 100,000 lawyers at the bottom of the sea?
A good start.
A good start.
Oh, that's bad.
Shakespeare, first kill all the lawyers. So,
that's bad. Okay, if you keep going, anyway.
I'm just saying, I love lawyer jokes. They're often true. And actually, the best one for our conversation today is the true definition of politics. Have you heard this one?
No.
Poly meaning many, and ticks meaning blood-sucking parasites.
Wow. I like that.
Well.
What is the opposite of Congress?
Yeah. What?
Progress.
Okay.
Anyways,
Okay.
all right, I'm done.
Bada boom. Okay,
Booyah.
so
I heard that one was in favor now.
Okay, so Jenna, on a more serious note, in Florida on Election Day, not only do we have a Senate race going on, a U.S. Senate race, you have the presidential race going on, but also there is what's called Amendment 4 on the ballot. Now, a lot of people listening have heard about this. It's a referendum for the citizens of Florida to decide on what is at stake here, and Fred, do we need to play before or after Jenna comment?
Before, I think, and
okay,
then
that
Jenna
would be
can
helpful.
comment. Yesterday, there was a news conference, and it featured the CEO of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Her name is Dr. Christina Francis, and she talked about Amendment 4 there in Florida, and you have that cut, Brent.
You know, there's a lot of information going around that women can't receive life-saving medical care when they need it because of these laws, and that simply is not true. OBGYNs like me across the country in every state are still able to treat miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, and other pregnancy complications. We also wanted to convey the true dangers associated with the abortion drugs.
Yeah, and she went on to talk about, too, and we're hearing this story repeated over and over again. There are 10 states with amendments that are being voted on with regards to abortion. But there's a lot of talk about how the language of these amendments by these pro-abortionists, the language is designed to confuse and to kind of lower the temperature that it's not really as bad as those bad pro-lifer people are describing it. And Jenna, that's one of the mistruths that are out there.
What's at stake here, Jenna?
Yeah, absolutely, and you're absolutely right that this is not legislation that can then be tweaked or modified by state representatives later. This is a constitutional amendment. This would cement a so-called right to abortion in the state constitutions, and in Florida, for example, this would provide no limits on abortion and have definitely abortions on pain-capable babies for basically any reason. And the language is very vague, purposefully. And so it says, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or, and this is the key, because viability isn't even defined, and that's problematic. But this is even worse. Or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. So viability just goes out the window, whatever that means to a court that would have to decide it later. But necessary to protect the patient's health determined by a healthcare provider under current Florida law, according to Governor DeSantis, that could mean your massage therapist. That could mean literally anyone. And when necessary to protect the patient's health, that's not determined. And so what happens if the patient's mental health and they go to a massage therapist and says, yeah, it'd really help you if you aborted your child in the 9th month of pregnancy. So no law will prohibit that. So this is purposefully vague. It is funded by Planned Parenthood and George Soros. Thankfully, in the state of Florida, we have one of the highest percentages for state constitutional amendments. It would have to pass by a 60% threshold. And so Governor DeSantis, I was with him and his team yesterday at an event where he is just going across the state to hold these town halls with doctors who oppose this and to tell the truth of what this actually would imply for the state of Florida, because even pro-choice voters in Florida don't want state-funded abortion on demand all the way till the 9th month of pregnancy. So if people are actually educated on the vagary of this language, we're seeing a lot of conversions that even pro-choice voters are saying, no, this doesn't make sense.
This is Wesley here, Jenna. So where would be some of the languages that they give us an example of some of the a portion or a couple examples of the language that they use that makes it deceptive or confusing for people?
Well, so what we just talked about in terms of viability, there's no definition of what that means. There's no definition of patient's health. There's no definition of patient's healthcare provider. And this also would remove parental consent. There would only be a requirement for notification. That could happen after the fact, 10 days after your 12-year-old goes and gets an abortion, or 14-year-old or 17-year-old, the parent gets a letter in the mail that this happened. So, I mean, there are so many problems and implications. And for people who want to learn more, vote no on forflorida.com is the website that has a really great 2-minute video that explains all of this and why this is so extreme and dangerous.
Okay. So, folks, if you have friends or family, if you live, obviously, in Florida, you need to do exactly what Jenna just said. You need to do it now or immediately after the show, because this is critically important to get the word out on how to vote for the pro-life position in 2 weeks. Jenna, so go ahead and give that that out again.
Vote no on 4florida.com, and it's the number 4. So vote no on 4florida.com.
Do you know, Jenna, who gets to write the amendment?
That's a great question. And for this one in particular, I'm not sure who all was involved in the language drafting, but this is why understanding the text is so important. And I actually talked about this on my radio show yesterday morning, if people want to listen to the last segment of the show yesterday, because this isn't just on the abortion regulation initiatives. This is actually happening in my former home state of Colorado on their Proposition 80, which is all about school choice. Now, as conservatives and as Christians, we're for school choice. I was homeschooled all the way through. It's a great thing. But the proposition that is on the ballot that was done by really good people, but unfortunately wasn't vetted enough, includes a so-called right to quote-unquote quality education that children would then have a right to in Colorado. And there's no definition of what quality means. So, of course, the government later could come in and say, well, homeschooling isn't a quality education, or religious-based education isn't quality. And so this is why these definitions matter, and why for anyone who is part of these types of drafting of amendments or even legislation, but especially constitutional amendments, have to be so careful about the terms, the text, and especially definitions.
Well, the amendment you read, the Florida amendment that's going to be voted on. Okay, I'm trying to look. I'm passionately pro-life and believe that abortion is the taking of innocent human life. I mean, it's sin. It's an unborn baby, God created. It will live till natural death if left alone. If you don't leave it alone, you go in there and abort it, cut it up. I hate to use those terms, but that's really what happens. You get rid of it. You have to get rid of it, otherwise it's going to come out the birth canal and live among us. I mean, that's the way. So my point is, but the way you read that, Jenna, that's very clever, cleverly crafted language, and somebody who didn't understand what was going on, or somebody who was maybe, they even would say, well, I'm against abortion, but man, that sounds so reasonable. Read that text again. And see
right.
Go ahead.
So it says, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. And the danger here, is because when we think just in our normal general English communication, protect the patient's health means those life-saving exceptions. Or an ectopic pregnancy, and before viability would mean before pain-capable babies and about under 12 weeks. But that's not what this is saying.
Yeah, you know what the amendment should say? If I were to write it, it should say that the Florida state legislature has passed a law that protects unborn. You can call them fetuses. That's a scientifically accurate word. The unborn human being that protects from being aborted beyond 6 weeks. Do you agree with this, yes or no? I mean, something like that would be more, you know what I'm saying, would be more accurate to me than the way that's worded. But that's, who wants to talk here?
I got a question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
My question is it not already against the law, or is it not already people? If the health of the mother is at stake, is that not already a thing, for lack of a better word? Like, the doctors not already take that into consideration
even before this is? Go ahead.
In Florida, with the heartbeat bill that Governor DeSantis signed, there are those exceptions for rape and incest, and also the life of the mother. So that's already law in the state of Florida. And remember when Kamala Harris is blaming that woman from Georgia who took medication for an at-home abortion and then decided not to seek medical treatment until, unfortunately, it was too late. Well, Governor DeSantis made the point yesterday that any sort of life-saving practice, there's nothing in Florida law that would require a doctor to not provide life-saving care to the mother. That's just patently false. And there is also a difference for when a mother would present at a hospital and the child already dead, like say unfortunately a miscarriage. That's not an abortion. And so of course, D&Cs and treating the patient is required under Florida law. So this is completely unnecessary. And Governor DeSantis also makes the point that even pro-choicers who think that a heartbeat bill is too extreme, I would disagree with them, of course, because I think we should have a total abortion ban, but, that's the pro-life position. But even for the pro-choicers who think that, go in and modify that through your state legislature, because if this passes, then you're taking away your right and the right of future Floridians to weigh in on abortion regulation and change this down the road. And so this is the danger of a constitutional amendment instead of legislation.
All right. So, Jenna, last question, because we're coming towards the end of the segment. So what do you think, just in terms of your general political science knowledge and opinions, what do you think about the referendum process? Our founders never intended us to act like a direct democracy. We have representatives on the state and federal level who we send to our state capital and our national capital to draft laws for us. What do you think about the amendment, the referendum process that is giving us everything from abortion changes to having legalized marijuana? What's your opinion?
And I actually spoke about this on my podcast last week, so listen to On Demand with Jenna Ellis. But I think that the entire process is bad for our process, and I would do away with it. And I think that it is an aspect of direct democracy that you're right, our founders did not intend in our constitutional republic, because to circumvent the state legislature and our elected representatives was something like modifying the state constitutions is a way that you can completely misinform voters, and to have even a 60% threshold, and some states are even lower than that,
they're all
is
50.
utterly ridiculous.
Almost all of them are 50. I can't think of another 60% threshold.
I mean, but this is why we also have the Electoral College, because we don't want to have just the sheer popular vote of a majority. We have these rules and processes for a reason, and the people who've established these types of workarounds are either trying intentionally to circumvent the process, like what Amendment 4 is doing, and Amendment 3 as well in Florida, or like Governor Tim Walz, who's saying, oh yeah, tear down the Electoral College. It's just to game the outcome. And we should, as conservatives, want to stick with our process.
One other thing I want to say here, Jenna, is I want to commend, and I know you're friends with Governor DeSantis and his staff there. He has put the full weight of the office of governor behind the pro-life position here, and he's taken a lot of heat and a lot of criticism for that. Even former President Trump, criticized DeSantis for taking this pro-life position at one time. Now, Trump did change his mind on this, on how he would vote on this amendment. But I'm just saying that there's a lot of pressure on the governor here, and he has been unyielding, and he's been consistent. So I wanted to praise him. That is Governor Ron DeSantis for that. You want to say anything about that?
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I'm very proud to be a resident of the state of Florida and have someone like Governor DeSantis who represents this state, and I only wish that the governors of all 49 other states would have that moral virtue and have the strength and resilience to stand up in the ways that he has, because he doesn't care what the media says about him. He's doing what's right at every single term, and he's also very smart. I mean, the way that he has gone about this in terms of education, litigation, and really just attacking these wrong positions at every viable way possible has been truly remarkable, and he's a great strategist. So I have nothing but respect for him.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenna. We appreciate it. Tell us about the podcast, how people can go and listen. Now, folks, this is separate from Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
Yes,
radio
yes,
show.
very excited. We just launched 2 weeks ago, so you can catch up there on demand with Jenna Ellis. Go to afr.net, click on the tab for podcasts, and then scroll down to On Demand with Jenna Ellis. And this is a way that we can do a deep dive into just one topic, and it gives a lot more time than the coverage of the news and culture topics of the day that we do in the morning. So it drops every Friday, and last week's was on the Electoral College, so it's kind of a history and then also a rationale for how you need to understand why we have the Electoral College. So looking forward to doing these deep dives weekly. And if you have a topic that you would love for me or me and a guest to cover, then you can reach me, Jenna, at afr.net, and let me know what you'd like to hear on demand.
Thank you, Jenna. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye. Talking to Jenna Ellis there. Ed, you're going to say?
No, I was just looking to see that if there were two podcasts, you can also get the podcast for Jenna Ellis in the morning. So if you miss her program, you can also get the podcast for that.
You know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Governor Ron DeSantis' career going forward. I'm just wondering if Trump is elected, may DeSantis take a position in the Trump administration? I don't know. I don't have any inside information there, but he would make a great attorney general.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Because obviously, if President Trump wins, then J.D. Vance is going to be the vice president, is going to be difficult to unseat.
Well, nobody will challenge him
as a favorite to run.
Yeah.
So
you mean in 2028?
In 2028. Yeah. So that's an excellent point, because Ron DeSantis he
has 2 years left.
He has 2 years left.
Yeah.
So if he wants to stay politically active, that might be he would be an excellent attorney general.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, of course, Governor DeSantis did challenge former President Trump in the Republican primary, and that didn't work for him at all. It didn't work for anybody.
Right.
Because Trump was just had so big a lead among Republican voters. However, DeSantis did bow out, and then he endorsed Trump.
Right.
And he's been a advocate for Trump since that time,
right.
Even though he challenged him in the primaries. Yeah. So anyway,
we really need Amendment 4 to fail in Florida because it needs to be an example, because other states have gone the other way. Even some red, there's obviously the blue states went the wrong way, but some of the red states did as well. And I think the ones that went the wrong way, we all would have hoped that is because it was they confused the language. We hope that it wasn't because that many people were in support of it as much as they were confused about the issue. We've had plenty of time, I would like to think, to explain, even though they still confused the issue, they meaning the far left. Who was it? Soros and Planned Parenthood is behind.
Oh, yeah,
them.
Big money. A lot of these states, pro-life groups are being outspent 10-1.
10-1, and so they've done a good job on their part making this a very difficult or confusing thing. So hopefully we've had enough time to offset some of that, I would like to think.
That was cleverly crafted language with that amendment. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And I'm with you guys. I'm not a big fan of the statewide referendums on issues. Are we going to vote on everything?
Right.
We just start voting. How about every Friday?
Right.
Every Thursday, everybody in the states just have a slew of 10 things, and we just all vote on.
If it's an omnibus bill, I'm not in. I'm in, not in.
Right, right. Well, we don't even need state legislatures then. You could save all that money. We just all vote on everything every week.
Exactly what the founders did not want.
Right. We'll be back momentarily.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Peter Rosenberger, author of the book A Minute for Caregivers, When Every Day Feels Like Monday.
I've been a caregiver for nearly 40 years, and I know how important it is to encourage a family caregiver. I also understand that caregivers don't have a lot of time. And each chapter of my book can be read in a minute. It's encouragement, support, and each chapter will point you to safety. Oh, by the way, they're all written in fluent caregiver.
A Minute for Caregivers is available at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Former President Donald Trump is headed to Georgia after spending the last 2 days in another battleground state, North Carolina. Aisha Hosni has the latest from Duluth, Georgia.
This is going to be a big primetime rally because that crowd is just massive, about 10 hours ahead before former President Trump takes the stage here. They're going to see the former president. They're going to see Tulsi Gabbard, who just announced last night that she is now officially a Republican.
Another key swing state up for grabs is Michigan. United Auto Workers Union member Joseph Knowles told CNN's Chris King that Democrats don't support everyday working Americans, but Trump does.
Knowles is a union auto worker, one of 1,100 just laid off by Stellantis, the parent company of Chrysler Jeep. He blames corporate greed the most, but doesn't stop there.
The second blame, I will put it on Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Why? Because of the EV mandates. I thought the Democratic Party was for the working class, people, the average Joe like me. That's what I thought.
And Michigan auto worker James Benson Jr. agrees.
We can pretend all we want that the Democrats are for us, but they're not. They're not. I've learned this over the years. Like I said, I was a lifelong Democrat, voted for Obama both terms. And you know what? All I saw was more losses and more jobs going overseas. During the Trump administration, nothing but growth and record sales. And at this point, the fake optics don't work anymore. You can't tell us at the grocery store, oh, the economy's doing great. It's just in your head. You're not hurting. No, we are hurting.
President Biden raising some eyebrows with this comment about former President Trump while talking to Democrats in New Hampshire.
I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up.
Fox News contributor Joe Concha says it is ironic that Biden got applause for saying Trump should be locked up in the state whose motto is live free or die.
Now that Biden has been shivved by his own party and cast aside for the most part, he doesn't seem to take any issue in sharing what Democrats have sought to do going back to day one of Donald Trump's first term. Obviously, that won't happen, locking Trump up, if he wins. But if he loses, it is guaranteed that they won't stop until Donald Trump is convicted and dies behind bars. And by the way, where did Joe Biden make these remarks? Campaigning for Kamala Harris in New Hampshire with Bernie Sanders. I mean, what's going on? Is New Hampshire in play too? Why send the sitting president there? Again, Biden making these remarks should be top stories on the major evening newscasts, and it barely got any play whatsoever.
A conservative pro-life activist is praising two Wisconsin college men who she says were doing God's work at a Kamala Harris rally this past weekend. Chad Groening has more.
As we reported on AFN, during a recent rally at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, Vice President Kamala Harris was attacking former President Trump on the abortion issue when two pro-life students let their presence be known.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Look, Janet Porter is founder and president of Faith to Action. She says Harris clearly showed her contempt for Christianity.
She said, you guys are at the wrong rally. And that says everything. Yes, they were, because God is mocked at a Kamala Harris rally. But people need to understand, God will not be mocked. And it's time for us to understand that there is a very stark difference between the candidates.
Porter says that difference was made clear at a J.D. Vance rally in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
The message was, Jesus is king, and J.D. Vance's response was very different from that of Kamala Harris. He said, that's right, Jesus is king. So when you're looking at what this election means, you have one candidate that mocks God, that tells Christians that they need to leave, and then you have another candidate who says, that's right, Jesus is king, that Christians are welcome, and that says it all.
I'm Chad Groening.
U.S. stocks are slipping as some more steam comes out of Wall Street's huge record-breaking rally. More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
America is at a crossroads.
We're talking about November 5th. The consequences of this election are broader than even sometimes I grasp.
You only have two options, to vote or not vote.
AFA at Home takes a deep look.
Pray for fair elections, that God's hand is over these elections.
It all impacts you directly. Make your voice heard.
Don't miss this special edition of AFA at Home on AFA Stream. Visit stream.afa.net to sign up today. Stream.afa.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues on American Family Radio. 25 and a half more minutes to go here on the program today. Hey, real quickly, we've got our 2025 tours dates set and where we're going. There are two different tours that you need to be aware of. One is our new Boston, Massachusetts, Ed's old stomping ground.
Yeah.
Kind of the cradle of early American history. Boston and the surrounding area, Lexington and Concord and
Freedom Trail,
Quincy and the Freedom Trail, all the sites of Boston.
Right.
We're going to Boston for the first time with a group. We already got people signing up to go with us. That will be a year from now in October, but we've already got it planned on the books. And
that is going to be an awesome trip for
Yeah.
October.
Wicked awesome.
Wicked awesome. Now, can I ask one question? Go ahead, give the information.
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I have
So,
one question.
so that's one tour. That'll be our inaugural tour of Boston and the surrounding area. And then the other tours are the normal tours we take annually to Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown, and then Washington, D.C., and Mount Vernon, George Washington's Mount Vernon. All those, so if you, those are in June and September. So if you want the pricing, the itinerary, everything that we're going to do and see, and how much it costs, and when to arrive, and all that good stuff, for Boston or for D.C. or for Williamsburg, here's what you need. Give them the website, Wesley.
Oh, well, hang on. Let me get it.
It's spiritualheritagetours.com.
Well, we know it's
wildmangroup.com.
Yeah, that's you
But
can
is it Wildman
still
Group Tours?
You can still go to what you said, Spiritual Heritage Tours, but it's going to redirect you to wildmangroup.com.
Okay.
Wildman Group.
Wildman, WILDMON group.com or spiritualheritagetours.com. Spiritual Heritage.
Well, the whole reason the other one is simpler.
Yeah, but you interrupted me, which made it more confusing. Whichever one you want to go to, spiritualheritagetours.com. I'm just so used to giving that over the years. You can go there, but all the date, everything you need to know about those tours. If you want to go with us to Boston, we'd love to have you. Ed, you were going to say?
Yeah, I just have one question. So in terms of food, okay, I know you're shocked. Are you going to make time on that trip to go to the north end of Boston?
Absolutely.
To eat at an Italian restaurant?
Absolutely.
All right.
Alice and I, we did that in July.
Then I highly recommend this
yes,
tour.
We're going to where we're going to where the Italians are in the Italian restaurants and
WAP Central.
What'd you call it?
WAP Central.
What does that stand for?
WAP. Well, it's that's a slur. It's an ethnic slur.
Wide angle
for
press?
No, it stands for without papers. That's what I was told because they came across. There are a lot of illegal immigrants.
Oh, from Italy?
Yeah,
back in the day.
They came over. Well, they came over on the boat and they would just say without papers.
Oh, they got mixed in with the general population.
And they just called them WAPs. That's
what
I was told.
In that
years
north
ago.
end, there was like I don't know 8 or 10 Italian restaurants. I mean, it's a big Italian restaurant area. All right, Steve Paisley Jordan joins us now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Tim. Is the Wildman Group, is that any relation to the Blue Man Group? You could like
Blue Man.
Aware of?
No? Okay.
We do bluegrass.
The Bluegrass Group. Okay.
Yeah, we do.
And I do have a question for you.
But it's a kind of a bluegrass rap.
That's combo, and it's all done
right.
audio through speakers and CDs. We don't actually sing it.
It's a unique form. Anyway,
that's
you asked
good.
me, and
Tell me what's the latest on your Israel tours?
Israel tours. Okay, we're our group that was scheduled to go in March because of what's been going on over there is going in February.
Okay, but you still got plans to go?
Yeah, we're going in February.
Good,
We're going in
good.
February. Listen, okay. I know that what's happening in Israel and Gaza and the northern border get a lot of attention, but we don't go near there. Okay, the tourists don't go near there. So,
yeah. Good.
Anyway, we're going to be going. We did have to postpone the trip in March, so we're going in February.
Good.
That help?
Yep. Yep.
Listen, I feel bad for the people in Israel who are. The tourism industry is huge. I mean, I think it's like second or third most profitable business in Israel is tourism from around the world because it's the Holy Land.
Right.
You know, and people from all over the world come to Israel to see the holy sites and to visit the place where Jesus lived and walked and the land of the Bible. So the sooner that gets back to normal, the better for those folks because you have tour guides, you have bus drivers, you have
restaurants.
You have restaurants that depend on tourism. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. Elon Musk has been campaigning with Donald Trump, and I want to play you a little bit. This is a little longer clip than we usually do. We could do this because we want to talk about government regulations and how they interfere with technology and everything, but this guy's just funny. Elon Musk has a great sense of humor. I just wanted to share this with you all. Cut 11.
SpaceX had to do the study to see if Starship would hit a shark. And I'm like, it's a big ocean, you know. There's a lot of sharks. It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. And said, well, you have to, this is, I think, from National Marine Fisheries, one of the, NIMF it's called. They were like, well, you have to do the study on whether you're going to hit a shark. We're like, what? We said, okay, fine, we'll do the analysis. And then, well, can you give us the shark data? They're like, no, we can't give you the shark data. We're like, okay, well, then we're in a bit of a quandary. How do we solve this this shark probability issue? And they said, well, we could give it to our Western division, but we don't trust them. And I'm like, am I in a comedy sketch here? And they're worried about the shark density data, like the people who hunt sharks for shark fins somehow getting their hands on the shark data. And so eventually I think we got the data and we could run the analysis to say like, yeah, the sharks are going to be fine. But they wouldn't let us proceed with launch until we did this crazy shark data. And then we thought, okay, now we're done. And they said, but what about whales? I'm like, when you look at a picture of the Pacific, what percentage of the surface area of the Pacific do you see as whale? Because look at a picture, I don't see any, it's like, where's a whale? And honestly, if the ship did hit a whale, it's like, honestly, that whale had it coming, because it's like the odds are so low. It's like Final Destination, the whale edition. It's like fate had it in for that whale, and so we have to do the whale analysis. And it's like, okay, yeah, the whales will be fine too,
Wow.
That guy's hilarious.
No, that is very funny, but that makes a really great point about all these people. And let me tell you, this is those people's job. Yeah. That's why they take this so seriously, because as soon as the federal government goes, you know what, this is kind of a silly job, they're working at McDonald's handing out fries like Donald Trump last weekend. So,
so he was talking about launching. Was he talking about launching or landing, coming back to Earth with SpaceLink or something?
Well, launching out of Vandenberg, I think, is specifically what. Because
where's that?
California, Southern California.
Oh,
right.
So was this the EPA or who wanted to know about the whales and the sharks?
One of the one of the ecological.
If it was a California, it's probably one of the state agencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like something they would do.
But you've got to estimate the potential for for damage to
the sharks from
sharks.
What? From something landing in the ocean?
He also he didn't. This was probably heard separately that they had to do a study about the effect of sonic booms on seals, and so they actually put a seal on got a seal out of the water, put him on a backboard, strapped him down, put headphones on the seal. Turned out the seals was fine with the booming sound, but anyway.
That's I tell you what though, that's about as hard as I laughed in a while. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was good to see someone like himself to to have a little fun and joke a little bit about the silliness of what we see with the
government.
Yep.
Well, one of the things I think that they've been talking about is getting him in the administration to help clean up some of the regulations. And stuff. So that would be good.
He doesn't have enough to do. Elon Musk.
He doesn't seem to be bothered by it, though. He really does. He's running 2 or 3 huge businesses.
Oh, more than that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was what back to the sonic boom. What now?
He had to do a study.
I want to try this at home. That's why.
Okay.
If I put something on the back of a seal, I have a seal. So that's
just drop him down.
So you got that part covered.
That's not a
so
problem.
not on your lap dog. You need to, mom's listening now, and you need to make sure she hears that you're not talking about trying this on the dog.
No. It's on our seal.
Your seal. Yeah.
So what am I supposed to do to him now?
They put headphones on the seal and they played sonic booms to see if it would bother the seal.
All right.
It didn't.
Okay.
But they had to do it.
Yeah. All right.
Sometimes you just don't know what to say about the federal government and its colossal waste of money.
Before, I don't want to take away from the humor here. Can I get serious for a second?
Please.
Okay.
I'm begging you.
Do you not? Is it not this obvious at this point, the difference between a far radical left and how they are unable to have a little bit of fun and laugh and cut up, and someone like maybe someone like either conservative or even someone who's a little bit more libertarian they can, after the fact, they can laugh a little bit about something. You know what I mean? Is it that? Am I the only one that notices that?
No. So let me ask you this:
like the Saturday Night Live skits, some of the ones they've most recently been picking on. Well, they've always picked on the people, conservatives and those on the right. But most recently, they're having a little fun with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. But the moment they do that, they take a lot of pushback when we all know they're kidding. It's a joke.
So let me ask you this: do you think that most Karens, okay, we all know what I mean by Karen, okay? My apologies, by the way, to all of our listeners who might be named Karen.
Not you.
We all know.
Not
you. We're talking about these women.
That's the pop culture name for a obnoxious woman
who won't mind her own business and is always lecturing and scolding total strangers.
Sorry.
There actually was an original Karen. It was a person.
And is that where the name came from?
Came from an actual event.
So what do you think? I'm just tossing this out. And our listeners are probably saying this is a meaningless conversation. It may very well be. What do you think the political orientation of your average Karen is? I would say they're left.
Oh, absolutely.
Leftist.
No, for
so,
sure.
Now I think a lot of people on the left can have fun.
Yeah.
But there is that sizable proportion.
Leftists have no sense of humor. All you got to do is look at the late night shows, Colbert.
That's what I was.
All those guys. They're not funny
Well, their sense of humor is always targeted at conservatives, Christians, Republicans.
But they're not even trying to be funny anymore. If you, I don't.
I don't
last
watch
time you
it.
listen, all they are.
I don't
is
watch
just
it either.
Bitter.
Yeah.
You need to quit watching it, Steve.
All right.
Because it's
That
affecting
way,
you.
It wouldn't affect you so much.
Honestly, he's affected, and he's probably just seeing clips of it.
Yeah, it's my job.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Next story.
Let's go.
All right. We are seeing a new trend in the Republican Party, which is early voting. Now, Republicans didn't vote early. In fact, Donald Trump told them, don't vote early in 2020. It's, Democrats are going to cheat. But since this is now the rules that we play the game by after COVID, Donald Trump has released his Republicans to go vote early. And in fact, nationwide, more than 18 million Americans have already cast ballots, more than 10% of the overall total of people who cast ballots 4 years ago. And Republicans are, in some cases, outdoing Democrats. They're certainly doing much better than they did before. And I know, Tim, you wanted to hear from Mark Halpern, who's a strategist on the conservative side. He was talking about the prevalence of these early voting and what it means. Listen to cut one.
Let's lead with the lead, as they say in journalism. If the early vote numbers stay the way they are, and that's a big if, we'll almost certainly know before Election Day who's going to win the election. We're going to talk a lot about that. The reasons why Democrats might be underperforming, the prospect that they'll recover. But again, make no mistake, if these numbers hold up in the states where we can understand even partially what the data is like, we'll know that Donald Trump's going to be president on Election Day.
That would be a good thing because we're hearing from several people in states that it might take more than a day. In fact, I have a cut. We don't have to play it necessarily, but we're down in Arizona. One county says it might be 10 to 12 days after the election before we actually have certified results
from that state.
And
that's inexcusable. I mean, there's no way a state in 2024 in the United States of America, we're not talking about Zimbabwe. I mean, we're not talking, we're not talking about some place that might not have electricity. We're talking about a modern, developed state. There's no way they should take 13 days.
Elections can surprise you. We don't always know when they're coming. No, we do. We know when they're coming all the time. All the time. We know exactly when they're coming.
Yes.
There's absolutely, to your point, no excuse. None.
Well, again,
or unless you're setting the stage for something.
Florida needs to be the model. Why these other states haven't learned from Florida, I'm talking about these other big states like Pennsylvania. I don't know. I don't know because Florida is the third most populated state in the country. And they'll have their vote tally wrapped up by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and you'll know who won, and the votes all be counted and in. And no disrespect to some of these other, like Arizona and Pennsylvania, but it's like, what are you yahoos doing?
Right.
Huh?
Pennsylvania and Michigan also, like you mentioned Pennsylvania, Michigan's also saying we're probably not going to have the results on election.
Yeah, why
Wait,
don't
are
you
y'all
guess?
serious? I haven't seen this. Are y'all read that?
No, listen.
Hold on.
I think Florida counts their votes, their absentee votes, on a daily basis. I think that's how. Type that in.
Well, we're typing in other stuff. Hang on.
Okay, well, do Google search on that because I think they're tallying their absentee ballots on a daily basis so that when they get to election day, they're already up to speed. They're already up to count. They just got to count that days. Where I think these other states like Pennsylvania, they don't even start counting absentee ballots until the polls close on election day. And I'm going, why is that?
That's silly.
How
Okay, I misspoke on Michigan. The Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, said she expects her state's election results to be certified the day after election.
Who said that?
Okay.
Michigan? Well, good for
end
them.
of day Wednesday. So this is, if it's 24 hours later than you would, at least 24 hours
Well,
later.
that's acceptable. I can, 24 hours is okay. If you got a real big state like Michigan and you got a close race, you want to make sure you get it right. What I care about, and I think this is going to happen, but is that if you do have to go into overtime, so to speak, to count votes, you need to have a Republican and a Democrat representative on site to watch every vote. If that's it.
So
are they? Let me ask you this. I shouldn't even bring this up because it's embarrassing. I do. When they say absentee ballots, are they sliding them into a? Is somebody sitting there sliding them into a
voting machine?
A voting machine, or are they sitting there going, "Okay, one for Trump"?
You're asking the wrong team here.
You mean
what I think.
when they count them or when the early voting?
Okay, I'm talking about the night of election is over, like Pennsylvania.
Someone has to
and somebody says, "Okay, polls are closed. Time to start counting the absentee voters." Sarah, Bill, John, Raymond, y'all get over here. We're going to start counting. How does that work?
That they do. They have people that actually do that, and usually, in fact, the ballots, mail-in ballots, are in two envelopes. There's an outer envelope and an inner envelope. It takes, I read somewhere, about 30 seconds per ballot.
Oh my gosh!
So that's why. Because
and they're
someone
waiting
has
to
to. Someone now with the early voting, they will in most cases, some cases, they'll know what parties. So, so many thousand Republican ballots have been returned or Democrat ballots have been returned. They don't know. It's very possible for Republicans to vote for Harris or Democrats to vote for Trump.
Well,
so it's not an exact science.
I don't want to. I mean, create trouble when there is none. Right
There
now.
is.
Right now,
every delay gives conspiracy theorists and maybe those who actually are very concerned about real vote massaging or electoral interference. It gives them reason to doubt the system.
Well, and places like Pennsylvania, like you're talking about, and I'm looking at an NPR interview with the Secretary of State from that state. They said by law they're not allowed to open absentee ballots until the polls close.
They should have changed that law.
Yeah, that should have been. And so they're saying it.
Here we go again.
It might not be on election night.
Now the news is, though, relative to this, even though it may play out like it did last time, 2020, in terms of we may be days or a week out from finding out who won in terms of the state like Pennsylvania. What was I going to say?
Early voting.
But the good news is that for the Republicans is that early voting is not as heavily in favor of Democrats as it normally is. That's the good news being reported by people who are pro-Republican.
Indeed.
So, all right, next story, Steve.
All right, the United Nations, of all people, has put out a report on violence against women in sports, and they're talking about the frequency of transgender athletes, and the report talks about violence and injuries to women who compete against men in these sports. But they did give some numbers about the number of athletes, women athletes who have lost out on medals in the various sports. Our friend Riley Gaines was on Fox and Friends talking about this morning. Listen to what she has to say. Cut 10.
Well, I think this is huge, as you said, especially coming from the UN, especially off of the coattails of the Olympic Games, where we saw 2 athletes who had previously been banned from world championships for failing sex eligibility requirements of having 2 X chromosomes in a boxing ring, winning gold medals in fights against women. So this is huge. What we know, what has been reported thus far, there are 717 female athletes, a total of 1,055 medals that have been stolen, over 522 competitions across 37 different sports. Again, Carly, that is just the number that has been reported and accounted for.
It's a lot of medals, a lot of athletes.
What were the numbers again?
She said 717 women athletes have been denied a medal, a total of 1,055 medals, which means some of these women would have gotten more than one medal. Okay. Over 522 different competitions in 37 different sports.
But this is worldwide. Right?
Yes, United Nations.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how many other countries are standing for men and women's sports.
Right.
I know Europe.
It's probably just a Western issue.
Yeah.
The Europe and the United States.
Doesn't happen much in Muslim
Canada.
countries, I'm thinking.
No, or it's not happening in China or Russia or other places like that. Well, listen, it's good to have numbers on this. And listen,
From
it would
United
be interesting.
Nations, by the way.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out how many scholarships women athletes were denied because a biological male took their place. All these kinds of things. Hopefully these numbers will come out and change the course of this debate.
What you keep hearing from those who are in favor or want to downplay the issue is, oh, come on, it's so rare. Why are you fighting this? Do you actually know a transgender, a lady that's been denied? It's a lot more common than they want you to believe.
Yeah, if all things are equal, I want to know, when the rise of the woman converting to be a man and they start dominating male sports. When is this going to happen? Because I keep waiting, for a new story. Why?
There are some women who decide they're men and want to compete with the men.
But Tim's talking about dominating.
They do very poorly. Yeah. They do very poorly.
It was tongue in cheek.
Yeah,
what you're saying.
It happens. It's just you don't hear about it because no one's being denied much.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't happen.
The average woman athlete and the average male athlete competing against each other, the result is a foregone conclusion.
Right. That's why you never see a woman who says she's a man guarding LeBron James.
Right. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or the woman that says she wants to remain a woman but play in men's sports, she ends up being a kicker.
Yeah.
In football.
And a bad one.
And a bad one.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.